My friend and neighbor, Peter Yarrow, the Peter of the folk group, Peter, Paul, and Mary, died on January 7th, 2025. He made the world a better place, not only because he so generously shared his talent, but also because he was a concerned citizen who, through his advocacy, pursued peace and justice and fulfilling community needs. He was the guest on my program nearly 10 years ago, and we're playing it again today in his honor and for inspiration to all of us in these restless times.
We say something cruel and harsh, they will do the same. The children are listening. The children are listening.
Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge & Company. It was a song called Don't Laugh at Me that inspired Peter Yarrow, the honored singer, songwriter, activist, and advocate, to end school bullying. In 1999, he and Dr. Charlotte Frank co-founded an educational nonprofit called Operation Respect to make his vision real. There's no one better to talk about all of this with than Peter, and he's my guest today. Thank
Ronnie, mwah. Good to be with you.
It's so nice to have you.
Many years of advocacy.
Oh, you've managed to use your music to really try to change the world, right?
Well, what we've been involved in, you and I and the people we know from the get-go, is trying to create a circumstance in which there's equity and fairness and people feel accepted for who they are, and we live by that legally and attitudinally. That's what the civil rights movement was about. That's what the women's movement was about. And the divisions that are created in society are tearing us apart. And what we need is a next generation that's given an environment to grow up in where they get a chance to say, we've already lived in a circumstance where we accept each other, where we know that the gifts of giving to one another are substantial and meaningful. And that's what Operation Respect does. It creates an environment which is kind of like a peaceful classroom, a caring classroom, in which bullying and ridicule and violence are far less likely to occur. But although it's seen as anti-bullying, it's really pro everything we've been working for and talking about.
Bullying is really an uneven distribution of power.
Bullying exists when it is repeated, when it's intentionally meant to injure, and when there's an inequity in power. And we see that not only amongst children today, but
around the world.
What's happening amongst children is also a reflection of what's happening in the adult world at this point, where it's commonplace and acceptable to be rude, to bully in business. Certainly Congress is, the lack of respect is terrible, hence the name Operation Respect. And the anthem for Operation Respect is that song called Don't Laugh at Me.
Why don't you just play a little bit?
This whole effort came out of this song. Sometimes
your daughter Bethany, who's following right with you, along with you, not in your footsteps, but there.
Yeah, she is.
She heard it, and she knew instantly that you would love it, right?
She did, and she said, you've got to bring it to Peter, Paul, and Mary because it's perfect for them. Everybody's deeply moved by this, as I think you might be when you hear it. I'm a little boy with glasses, the one they call a geek, a little girl who never smiles, 'cause I got braces on my teeth. And I know how it feels to cry myself to sleep. I am the kid on every playground, the one that's chosen last, a single teenage mother trying to overcome my past. You don't have to be my friend, but is it too much to ask? Don't laugh at me, don't call me names, don't get your pleasure from my pain. In God's eyes, we're all the same. Someday we'll all have perfect wings. Don't laugh at me. I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm short, I'm tall, I'm deaf, I'm blind, I'm disabled. Hey, aren't we all? Don't laugh at me, etc. It's the song.
Lovely. And it's played as part of the program that you, the curriculum that you've and Charlotte Frank developed, right?
Yes, and that curriculum includes social and emotional learning.
It's now called SEL.
SEL, that's
Right.
right. Social emotional learning. It's very, very important, and it's represented by the idea that the education of our children cannot focus solely on their intellectual growth. We have to develop whole children, ethical children, good citizens, whose social sense and emotional sense is ethical and caring. And that's in addition to their intellectual growth, to their STEM. There has to be the A, which is arts. And that includes music and art, which we know well, having gone to
High School of Music and Art.
the Fame School, the High School of Music, one of the two Fame
Yeah,
schools,
yeah.
yes.
So it also teaches conflict resolution. I mean, it's a different term, but how you work out differences of opinion or disputes. Instead of
yes.
fighting, you talk it through.
Right, it has the rudiments of conflict resolution. It starts really with kids recognizing and identifying their own feelings. And then once they've done that, they can walk in each other's shoes and say, I understand how you feel when this happens to you and me. Experiential learning means kind of living it together rather than talking about it at a distance. And it also has other elements whereby you have a peace place in the classroom, where you have the kids involved in doing service learning and learning how rewarding it is to work for something you believe in, which is something we know well. You know, kids are not even taught civics now.
I know.
You know, and so they
Civics
don't understand.
It's the most important subject I ever took, I think.
Yeah, we have to
junior
know,
high school.
why do we have a government?
Yeah.
How does a government function?
What's our role in it?
Exactly, and how do we serve it? So what Operation Respect, Don't Laugh at Me, which is the program, which is not only in the United States in many thousands. It was one point we tabulated it that we were in 22,000 schools. We're also in Israel, 53% of the schools, 63 actually. A little bit in Jordan, a little bit in Palestine, Ukraine, Croatia, Hong Kong. Definitely, we've been there for many years. Japan is now working there. And because this is all over, they're dealing with an absence of empathy,
I was
an
going to ask you,
absence of
do they
compassion.
learn? Do you think people learn empathy, or is it something inside of us that gets awakened if it's not already?
I think it's inside of us to be articulated. In other words, we, I think, have that predisposition, but we can also be turned away from it if our better natures are not appealed to. I think there's the dilemma of our time is that the appeals to our cruelty, our voyeurism, our mean-spiritedness are everywhere on television, reality shows. We see that now, you know, it's been going on in elections for a long time, but now it's really
right in our
deep.
face, right.
Yes, it is. And what's most disturbing is to see that it's not something that people do with hesitation. It's something that they get pleasure from doing, as it says, don't get your pleasure from my pain. But you see, bullies, do you think that bullies are outcasts? On the contrary, the culture is such that bullies are, in many, many, many cases,
Respected.
they are respected, they are, and not only among children, but also
Well,
in...
You have to look at Donald Trump and see the following. But you know,
Yes.
it's the results of bullying. I mean, we have figures like 180,000 children every day stay home from school because they're afraid of it.
They're afraid to go to school, afraid of being bullied.
Right.
You have 83% of the LGBT community reports having been harassed, or harassed actually is the right
Is that the right
pronunciation.
word?
Yes, my
Okay.
mother was an English teacher. or violence perpetrated against them. Last year, you have...
The mass shootings in the school, right?
That's right.
Thirty-
In almost all the cases, for instance, I created a concert at the request of Newtown for healing, and the Adam Lanza, who created this horrific act, was bullied at Sandy
school.
Hook Elementary. Now we don't know, to what
exactly,
degree
yeah.
that happened, but it's happened all the time. It happened. We know
Columbine, that was those two
Columbine,
boys.
those two boys were bullied.
They were great. They were high students. They were considered nerds, right?
That's right.
And they went out and did that.
But this happens every day now. In our country, that there are these kinds of events, maybe not necessarily mass shootings like that, but
Suicides
violence
also.
and also suicides.
Yeah.
And with cyberbullying, that has become more and more critical.
And just the general depression that some of these young people have to live with, caused by this feeling of inadequacy.
right.
And is bullying a term that's just for youth and children? Somehow we
No,
don't
it's-
carry it on, but we should, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wherever there's a lot of bullying in the workplace,
Yes.
there's bullying in Congress. There's bullying. How do you get bullying? Bullying implies an inequity of power. One person is more powerful than the other. It's repeated, and it is done with intent to injure. What we need to do is not just eliminate guns, with all due respect, but we have to eliminate the kind of culture that countenances this kind of perspective. We can do this. We're doing it in schools everywhere, where kids love each other and they get a vision of that. Now, yes, the world is different, but if they are strengthened with that vision and live it, they can be a next generation that can carry us into a time of empathy
Our
and
long-term
decency.
hope of changing the world.
That's right. Because with adults, it's very hard to change emotional, social perspectives.
You have a wonderful website. I think it's one of the best websites I've ever seen because you can go into such depth for everything. You learn the curriculum, you see the children, and one of the things I saw was, or heard in it was, there was some problem in a classroom, and one of the boys said, "I think it's time for Don't Blame Me."
Don't laugh at
Don't
me.
laugh at me.
Yes,
It's
that's right. Well, in
like
some schools,
time out
first of all,
instead of the-
Molly McCloskey, who was one of the main leaders of this whole child education
this SEL.
initiative.
Yeah.
Yes, is our CEO and president, and she has just completely redone our website so it has that kind of lucidity.
Fabulous.
And
Just
thank you.
fabulous.
And what I know is that sometimes in some schools, if there's bullying going on, the kids don't go over to the bully or say anything, they just sing, "Don't laugh at me, don't call me names," and everybody starts singing it, nobody confrontationally. And the consensus is delivered, and it stops. Music, in my experience, going back to Peter, Paul, and Mary, when we were at the March on Washington, music, when people can share it when they can sing together a song as we did then. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. And that had just gone to its top position on the charts, number 2, the week before. Everybody knew it, and instead of they're just listening, they held hands. I have the picture. If you watch the Peter, Paul and Mary TV special, you see Julian Bond with his hands back and forth singing this song in the 250,000 people. When people sing together, which is why music is so important in the Don't Laugh at Me program, they'll sing all kinds of songs. They'll sing, "Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing." And they'll sing it. You'll hear it if you go to the website. You'll hear it in Hebrew. You'll hear it in Ukrainian. You'll hear it in various languages, and together, and in Arabic. You'll hear it in Arabic, and you'll hear the song, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine." And you'll hear our basic songs are, "If I had a hammer, I'd a hammer in the morning, in the evening." These songs still resonate.
And they bring this sense of community. You're making me almost cry when I think of how exhilarating it was to be in a crowd of people and hearing the songs
singing together.
and singing along with it, with this unified vision.
That's right. And it's empowering.
Yeah.
And when the kids sing together, just like we felt that we could move forward and create a civil rights movement that would entirely change the dynamic between blacks and whites. And although racism has reemerged in a terrible way, enormous things were achieved. But when people do this in that kind of circumstance, it's repeated in a little classroom where kids sing together and they feel, their emotion show. If we sing together, that's what happens. And it's really quite
wonderful,
remarkable.
huh?
We also do, "I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside." I mean, these songs are classic.
Why do you think we don't have as many movements? Well, I guess we do in a way, don't we? We've got Bernie Sanders got the young people.
Yes.
Really, we have to worry about what's going to happen with them.
Yes, we do. But the movement, there's a huge. My daughter is one of the really leading people in the anti-fracking movement. Ronnie, she just got arrested a week and a half ago. We're proud of her.
And there she lives upstate, doesn't she?
She lives upstate and in New York. There she was. You can see her. Bethany getting arrested singing. It's at FERC, which grants the pipeline permits. And she says, we shall not be moved." You can imagine what it's like for me. And I go and I join her, and she leads, but there are movements, and they're powerful movements, and they are singing. But it's not at the top of the hit parade now anymore, that kind of music, as it was in the 60s and in the 70s. Because music has become so commodified, you can get to it on the net, and it's there, and there are many people writing songs. And I just wrote a new song, by the way, that's a song, I've been writing songs about movements, and so it is happening.
Does rap, what does that do?
Rap and hip hop has two faces. Part of it is nihilistic, and it's for the money, and it's crude, and it's demoralizing. But for instance, the Peace Poets, Luke Nephew, who's doing a version of the song "The Children Are Listening" that I'll share with you, he's doing a hip hop version of it. There are lots of people in that idiom who are doing extraordinary work. They're part of Black Lives Matter. They travel, yes, there is that face, but are they covered? Yes, they're covered, but in a minor way, but they're not at the top of the pops, so to speak, you know?
Let's go back to Operation Respect. You also, I mean, people go around. You go around the world, I guess, talk about the project and other people. So you also train educators.
We do. That's the way we function. We have Mark Weiss, who was an extraordinary principal in New York that started 2 extraordinary schools, one in the South Bronx for children that were considered, for teenagers who were considered ineducable, that did better than the so-called regular school next door. He's our director of education, and he has trained thousands and thousands. We've trained over 50,000 educators, and then we have trainers of trainers. So, I mean, we can't be over in Israel, but over there, he has trained the trainers. And now we have this Don't Laugh at Me program in Hebrew, in English, and in Arabic, in the Arabic schools as much as it is in the Jewish schools, that's not only used to create a caring environment in which violence and bullying will occur less or not at all, but it's also used to diminish the hatred and the fear that spiked and always spikes when there is a conflict. In the last Gaza war, that's what happens, and when that happens, it creates something at the ground, at the grassroots, that makes it very difficult to conceive of peace, because that hatred and that pain, that cycle of retribution, it has to be interrupted, and it can through children.
Now, is this an accepted part of curriculums, or is it still cutting edge in the schools? Let's talk about this country.
In this country, it's to a certain degree cutting edge, but through ASCD, which is where Molly McCloskey, Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, it's become a movement of its own. Molly was one of the leaders, if not the top leader of that, so that in schools there are now standards for a climate that is hospitable. And that's all new, and it's come out of this movement that Molly McCloskey really was leading.
And part of it would be a parent's demand of the school system.
Yes, that's true, but that was not as effective as it's coming from the educational model itself.
Yeah.
You know, Randy Weingarten, who's a great friend, is absolutely a huge supporter of this.
Good. Yeah.
And tolerance, and it's all about, look, Operation Respect, think about it. If we had respect for each other, really respect, and even embrace, we wouldn't have to be marching. We'd care about each other. We'd care about the next generation. We wouldn't allow ourselves, as a human race, to be facing, you know, the kind of an environmental, irreversible, catastrophic change that we're facing. We wouldn't see Black Lives Matter because we wouldn't
need it.
We respect people of color. We respect. So what we inculcate is the force that pushes against these negative
It's
forces.
almost the counterculture to finance and rich and
it is to exclusivity.
Extravagance.
The difference between the haves and the have-nots is ever increasing. Did you know that 20 families own the wealth of 20 families, 50% of the wealth that's been created in the last decade or so. 20 families.
Yeah.
Talk about, it's the Gilded Era, it's medieval.
This whole program takes us back to what we expect of humanity.
And yes, what we expect, and it gives children a sense that what they should reach for is not their name on a building and saying how big you are, or a big medallion saying, or the power to bully and to injure, but they see the joy of being there and loving each other and helping each other. I sing in a hospice. Nobody there is talking about their money. All they want is gentleness and kindness. I'm on the board of the Connecticut Hospice.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's what we really want. What we really want is to be loved and respected. And if we can get that back into the children's hearts and brains, we can have a huge effect.
Yeah, they always say, you know, it's a little pat, the children are our future, but this is important because we want the children to make the future a better place, right?
That's right. They have to grow to not only be the leadership, but the constituencies that say we have a civic responsibility and a civic joy. For me, why at the age of 77, Ronnie, do you think I'm still doing this and enjoying it like crazy?
Because it comes from you, it's you. How did you get to be this way? We don't have the time, unfortunately. You're going to have to
I
come
was
back.
at the High School of Music and
Oh,
Art where
right.
we learned that.
I think that's true.
See, if we got that vision there,
Yeah,
let's give that vision to those children
Yeah.
all over the country,
Yeah.
in thousands and thousands of schools, and we're doing it. And that's why this work is
Right.
so important.
and how important it is for us as adults to set also the example, because sing your song.
Oh, yes, this is called The Children Are Listening. And let me sing this for you, because this is really, really, I just wrote this, so I may have to refer to the
Okay.
words, okay? You'll forgive me if I do,
I will, definitely.
because I'm 77, I am
No, stop it, come
excused.
on.
The children are listening. The children are listening. If we say something cruel and harsh, they will do the same. The children are listening. The children are listening. If they grow up to be bullies, we'll have ourselves to blame. Miracles can happen even on the darkest day, when we fear that all is lost and that hope has gone astray. Sometimes we drop our weapons when the price we pay is too great, when the damage to the ones we love is greater than our hate. Well, it's time to come together across the dividing lines for our children that are suffering with the pain in these our times. It's not just ridicule and taunts and bullying by their peers. Grown-ups' rage and hateful words are ringing in their ears. The children are listening. The children are listening. We say something cruel and harsh, they will do the same. The children are listening. The children are listening. If we grow up to be, they grow up to be bullies, we'll have ourselves to blame.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter Yarrow, and thank you for spending your life to make this world a better place.
You know, it's the greatest joy. People should know
Yeah.
that I am the one who gives thanks. That's what the kids learn, that the joy of loving and giving is like the joy of parenting. But instead of it's being your own kids, it's everybody. And somehow that got through to me via Pete Seeger and the High School of Music and Art, and
Thank
people
you so
like you,
much.
Ronnie.
Thank you.
Thank you.